I want to talk about when it comes to this specific one, the form fill application, is the data scopes. As you see when we record and I bind data is that we can pick between parameter, test data, module and project data, right? Because you want to usually kind of have the test to adapt to the data you're sending to it, very often you're going to use parameter data. But I'm going to show you the significance of the other data scopes as well. For instance, let's say I have this data, but I want this to be one of my users and I want to share this data within my module, okay? So I can actually click here. Either I click on the data tab and I say new data, which is the typical way to do it. But I'm going to show you how to transfer some data into some data you can use between the tests in the module, for instance. So again, project means share the data with the whole project. Module means share the data with the module, in this case forms. And test scope means only use the data for this test. So I'm going to start by copy to data, and I'm going to show, in this case, I'm going to pick the module scope, and I'm going to call this test or user 1, okay? So this guy is user 1. And then if I want to switch this out, I can actually do this, and it will automatically replace this with module user 1. So let's play this now to make sure it works. Well, now you notice I made a mistake, right? I forgot that now it took the data I should use for validation, not for data generation. So I will now go into the data tab, into module user 1, and I'm gonna change this so it has a single slash, okay? So let's see now if this is working better. See, now it's working, right? Now you have some data set that is that you can use and share within the module, and it's just default being used here, being set in the parameter window. Now I could, for instance, I could copy this data. So I use copy paste, and then I will rename this to user 2. And now I can say instead Benny Goodman. And if I want, I can go into the parameter and set the default to be user 2, which would be, now it should be Benny Goodman, for instance, right? So now you get an idea that you can have a set of different test data set on different levels in the project or different data scopes, and you can use them interchangeably. But the more typical way of doing this is, for instance, if I have an upstream test, let's say, let's again create a test suite called add to users, right? This is a little stupid, but it still makes sense. And I'm adding the form fill into this test. So in the first one, I'm gonna, let's duplicate this. So I'll just use the copy again, paste. So now I have 2 calls for the form fill function. And then on the value side, where I'm sending the parameter, I can put module, and it will autofill user 1 versus value module user 2. So this is the kind of flexibility where you can copy the data, play around with it, and then kind of use this to set and override the parameter data of a test case. So let me clean this up, and let's just run these two and see what happens, okay? And as you can see, it runs the same test case with a different set of data by overriding the parameter data. So the last thing I want to show you, which is very powerful, is what happened here inside the form fill, for instance, on user form. Now I can actually click debug data, and I can see the values that were used. This is of course the last run, so it would be the Benny Goodman. You have a password, you have the email it was using, and you can also override the execution data and test it out. So this is really powerful. I won't go into this in detail, but it's very powerful. You can see the data that was used, and you can also step through with the different actions to see if the data changed in the course of the execution of the test case.